It's not all that often that you get quiet injury news surrounding any player on your favorite football team, considering we live in the digital age where information is literally right at our fingertips all the time. But PJ Locke underwent some off-season back surgery that we have to talk about. And I have a couple of questions about not only how it affected his play in 2024, but what does it mean going forward for 2025? Welcome into the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. My name is Moose, and this is why you subscribe, my friends. When breaking news hits, or any kind of news really surrounding the Broncos hits, we're going to make videos for you. So hit subscribe if you already haven't. It is completely free, and you're going to be locked in for the remainder of the year, especially when football season comes around. So what do we know about this most recent PJ Locke back injury? Well, he underwent back surgery 5 months ago, and he kind of actually announced this himself on his YouTube channel, which he has, and he said it directly to the camera, front-facing, and just said, my back feels great now. And according to the doctor's reports, his L4 and his L5 vertebrae had completely deteriorated. Now, what does that look like for you? Well, if you know anything about the human back, and I'm not going to pretend like I do. I didn't go to med school. There's a reason I'm hosting the Broncos Breakdown for you guys. But I'm assuming that it's right near your sciatic nerve. So as someone who has dealt with a sciatic nerve injury back in my playing days, I played baseball and golf, I can tell you right now the lower back, when it comes to mobility, it's almost a necessity that you don't have any pain, especially when you're playing a sport. Because when that kind of gets messed up and you get all tight and tweaked, it's not comfortable. So I can only imagine what it's like when you're hitting bone-on-bone contact on your vertebrae discs. It must have been insanely painful. So I am happy that he's recovering. You never, ever want to see a player in pain, regardless if they're on your team, regardless on how you feel about them as a person. They're all men trying to earn a living for themselves and their families. So we should never, ever root for any player to be injured on another team. And when it comes to your team, wishing them the speediest recovery possible. Here's what PJ Locke had to say on his YouTube channel about his injury. We're about 5 months out, and it's been nothing short of a blessing. It's like a miracle. I've got no pain levels. Even like the little bit of pain that I have from certain movements is nothing compared to what I was dealing with during the season at all. So I feel like, man, it's just been a miracle. I feel like it's been a breakthrough that I've been praying for. Wonderful words to hear. But as soon as he said that, the analyst in me, the host in me, had one question in mind. And I don't mean to kind of downplay his injury, but how much of this did affect his 2024 play? Because the numbers, let's be real, my friends, they weren't great. Not in 2024. Now, there was that slight toe injury that he had in 2024 as well. And everybody thought, well, maybe that's just it. Maybe he's just dealing with this nagging foot injury. But now we know that the back probably had something to play in it with it as well. And the Broncos defensive back depth chart, try saying that 5 times fast. Look, on paper, it's insane. It's incredible. So my question now becomes, what does this mean for PJ Locke? And it's obvious to me the Broncos knew about this. They gave him an award in January. An injury, like coming back or prevailing through injury award. And everybody thought it was because of that toe. But now we know that the back was a lingering issue. And it's something that, again, you never ever want to take lightly, because if you mess up your back, that can mess up for your walking and your movement and your ability to pick up your kids and play with your kids for the rest of your life. So it is so important that these really serious injuries be handled correctly. Now, again, I'm going to bring it back to the host in me because this is my job. What does it mean going forward? Well, I've got a couple of questions and a couple of thoughts about all of this coming forward, and, one free agent that we brought in and another one that we brought in 2024 who had a great season. But before I do that, it's the last day, guys. Last day that you can get this shirt on sale. $39.99 Now $15.99, 60% off. Trust me when I say this, there's not a better deal on Broncos gear right now on Fanatics. So if you want your last minute deal and you want to cash in on this amazing 60% sale, do me a favor. Go down to the comments and description of today's video and click this link. Start shopping your favorite products today. It doesn't have to be the shirt. It could be anything, but this shirt is specifically on sale. Chatsports.com/BroncosT. So now I'm starting to kind of formulate questions about what this means for his role in 2025, because there is no secret. The Broncos went out and signed Talanoa Hufanga in free agency. In 2024, they signed Brandon Jones, who was coming off of his best season of his NFL career, just so happened to be with the Broncos. So the story, the website that covered this article about PJ Locke was Sports Illustrated. And here's what they had to say. Unfortunately, Locke wasn't able to fully translate the momentum into his 2024 season from 2023, even though he was the starter with Kareem Jackson, they're talking about, having been waived late the previous season. Also absent in the Broncos' backfield last year was Justin Simmons, Locke's safety partner, when he was filling in for the suspended Jackson. But Simmons was gone, and in his place was Brandon Jones, who I think the Broncos fans know had an unbelievable season, signed with the Broncos from the Dolphins in March of 2024. And Locke would have had to get some work to be done to be on the same page as Jones, and obviously it didn't happen. Locke struggled, especially in coverage. I'm not going to pretend that this back injury meant that there was another gear to PJ Locke's game. I'm not going to say that at all, because even fully healthy, he's not as good as Brandon Jones, and he's not even close to Talanoa Hufanga. But let's talk about Jones and Hufanga for a second. With how good these two are going to be, what does the playing time look like for PJ Locke? And ask yourself this question, because what's his role going to be? He's not nearly as good in coverage as a guy like Brandon Jones, and he's not nearly as hard-hitting as a guy like Talanoa Hufanga. Both of those players offer the exact, 180 of each other. They're mirrors of each other. And Locke will end up just being a rotational/depth piece. So I don't know what his playing time is going to look like. And the Broncos signed Sam Franklin Jr. in 2025. Producer Joe, if you could bring up the defensive back depth chart one more time for me. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I mean, can we all just acknowledge that with how good this safety room and this cornerback room and this defensive secondary is going to be, that barring any injury, you would have to make sure that you are performing at the very top of your game at all times in order to carve out any playing time for yourself. That's just the nature of the game that you play. So I have listed PJ Locke as a trade candidate. I'm not so sure that you're going to get anything higher than a 7th round pick for him, but it is possible, especially with cutting him. If you trade him or cut him now that we're past June 1st, you're saving about $4 million in cap space. So obviously this helps the Broncos out from a salary cap perspective. And if they were able to trade him, not only do they get that, but they could end up getting a 7th round pick. It just kind of makes sense that he's a trade candidate for the Broncos, considering what you've brought in. So I know Broncos fans are going to look at me and say, well, we need the depth. Depth is always great to have. There's plenty of depth on the Broncos right now to fill in for PJ Locke. Plenty of it. Devin Key, he can fill in. Sam Franklin Jr., he can fill in. You don't necessarily need PJ Locke on the roster. As much as I feel like he's fit the system, as much as I'm happy that he's recovering, as much as I believe that Broncos fans actually enjoy seeing him on the field, he's just not as good as the other guys. Now, maybe there's a better element to his game because of the injuries and because he's, recovering from that. It's all entirely possible. And I hope that is the case, because if the Broncos decide to keep him and he does get onto the field, then you're looking at somebody that they will need to step up when Hufanga and Brandon Jones are off the field. So it leads me to my final question. Should the Broncos trade PJ Locke? Trade or keep? Let me know in the comment section down below. I think you guys know my answer for right now. I'm going to say trade. And that's not because I dislike him. That's just because I believe that there are certain players that have a role on this team, and there are certain players that might not have the biggest role that you could get draft compensation for. He just happens to be one of them. That's going to do it for us on today's episode. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Remember to subscribe if you haven't. And as always, be cool.